things happening in Montgomery Public Schools. For starters, MPS has received a $750,000 grant for a program called Stop School Violence. This grant comes to us from the U.S. Justice Department's Office of Justice Programs. The grant will provide training for teachers and students to prevent school violence. Next, I want to congratulate Lamp student Ella Beth Kirkland for being named Distinguished Young Woman of Montgomery County for 2021. This is the second year in a row that the winner of this distinction has come to us from Lamp. I also wanted to congratulate Kayla Holly of BTW, who was second runner-up. This is also the first chance that I've had since the last board meeting to congratulate Lamp's 13 National Merit semifinalists. Lamp has the second highest number of semifinalists in the state, despite me being one of the smaller schools. I also want to acknowledge some great partnerships this week. Carter High School graduate Brian Smith's Blue Heart Foundation 334 recently donated gardening and cleaning supplies to Brubaker Primary. And we also want to thank Livono Mumpfield of T&L Lawn Care, LLC, for helping prepare Seth Johnson Elementary Campus for the return of students. I wanted to express the board's gratitude to both of these partners tonight. And finally, this is my last opportunity before Election Day to speak about the Ad Valorem Tax Referendum. We are at a critical moment in Montgomery's history. In 14 days, the citizens of Montgomery County will have the opportunity to vote for a tax to increase funding for Montgomery Public Schools. It has been 26 years since we've had this chance, and that is a full generation. Why should we vote for better funding? All we have to do is walk into one of our older and some of our newer buildings to know the reason. When a child walks into a building where there are leaky roofs, exposed pipes, moldy walls, and peeling paint, it tells a story. As a board, we do our best to make sure that students know we care about them, and we do everything to ensure that they have a fair shot at a bright future. The buildings need to reflect the same message. We need to show our students that we care enough to offer them access to more AP classes, to art and music, foreign languages, and career tech education. That we care enough to lower their class sizes by hiring more teachers. That we care enough about their well-being to hire more counselors and nurses. That we care enough to make sure that their teachers are well-trained and well-compensated. That we care enough to make sure their schools are safe and have the best security possible. Are we going to tell them that their future matters and that we are ready to invest in them? There's no more time to wait. We might not get another chance for a very long time. There are still some who have concerns about the past misuse of funds. I want to make it clear that it is because of the work of Dr. Moore and Chief Financial Officer Arthur Watts that these incidents came to light. The people who are responsible are no longer with MPS, and they have been prosecuted. Checks and balances have been put in place to keep this from happening again. The message should be loud and clear. We will not tolerate misuse of funds, not even 1 penny. The average homeowner will pay about $12.75 a month more. That sounds like a bargain to me. Imagine ensuring a brighter future for 28,000 children, and it only costs about as much as a subscription to a streaming service. This vote is about Montgomery's future. It is about our ability to attract business and to have a well-trained workforce. It is about retaining the support of Maxwell Gunner and its economic impact. But it is also about something deeper. It is about what we value. It is about believing in our young people. It is about being able to say 20 or 30 years from now that we as a city and county did the right thing when we were called upon to do it. In closing, my plea to everyone hearing this, please flip over that ballot on November 3rd and vote for the last item on the ballot, better funding for Montgomery schools. Thank you. We are at the point in our program where we have some scheduled public comments, and I would remind you that in order to make public comments, your requests have to be made in writing to the superintendent's office by 4:30 on the Tuesday preceding the meeting date. Requests must have specified the nature of the business to be taken up with the board and the name of the person who will address the board to be added to the agenda. Communications must be respectful. Discussing specific students or employee matters will not be allowed. Individuals who have concerns that are inappropriate to be solved in this venue are welcome to seek a problem-solving meeting with the superintendent. Immediate feedback by the board may not be provided. However, you may be contacted for follow-up by the superintendent or her designee. Public comments may not exceed 3 minutes. The board chairman has full authority to terminate the remarks of any person whose comments contain personal attacks, exceed the time limit, or are otherwise inappropriate. A speaker may be considered disruptive who continues to speak when their allotted time has ended, when asked to stop speaking by the board chairman or is otherwise inappropriate. If a person fails to comply when asked to terminate comments, he or she will be escorted to their seat out of the auditorium and or off MPS property, depending on the level of disruption. So our first scheduled comments are Mrs. Claire Schuler.
It's Ms. So I'm here to discuss the McKinney-Vento Act. For those of you who are unaware of what the McKinney-Vento Act is, it is a federal law that was enacted to assist homeless students to navigate the educational system when they are moving often, making it difficult to maintain a stable learning environment. It supersedes conflicting state laws or local policies. The terms McKinney-Vento children and youth experiencing homelessness, and children and youth in homeless situations are used interchangeably in this document, along with the legal phrase homeless children and youth to emphasize the fact that homelessness is a temporary, dynamic experience and not a static condition or fixed group of people. In the Title 42, the Public Health and Welfare, Chapter 119, Homeless Assistance, Subchapter 1, General Provisions, it is the general definition of homeless individual is an unaccompanied youth and homeless families with children and youth defined as homeless under other federal statutes who have either experienced a long-term period without living independently in permanent housing, have experienced persistent instability as measured by frequent moves over such periods, and can be expected to continue in such status for an extended period of time because of chronic disabilities, chronic physical health, or mental health conditions, substance addictions, histories of domestic violence or childhood abuse, the presence of a child or youth with a disability, or multiple barriers to employment. The McKinney-Vento Act requires schools to enroll students experiencing homelessness immediately, even if that student is unable to provide documents such as school records, vaccination records, etc. The enrolling school can also get that information regarding class schedules from the parents or the youth. Enrollment includes ensuring youth can attend the classes for which they are eligible and participate in school activities for which they are eligible and for which they wish to participate, including other academic and extracurricular activities. If a youth has not been in a school and tries to enroll mid-semester, the McKinney-Vento Act requires the school to enroll that student immediately. The Act also requires the LEA, the local educational agency, to remove barriers to the student's retention in school, including barriers due to absences. Since the inability to earn any credit is a disincentive to remaining in school and therefore a barrier to retention, the school must address that problem. The Act requires schools to enroll students immediately in the school in which they are seeking enrollment until the dispute reaches its final resolution. That includes all available appeals.
That's our time.
The school must work with the prior school to calculate, award, and receive partial credits, as well as make any necessary adjustments to the student's schedule to permit the student to complete courses started elsewhere and to participate in credit recovery opportunities. After that, the school must then refer the youth, parent, or guardian to the McKinney-Vento liaison, who must carry out the dispute resolution process as quickly as possible. Liaisons should assist with preparing the appeal and should make resources of the school, e.g. copying, mailing, or obtaining records available to the parent, guardian, or unaccompanied youth. Additionally, states must have procedures that ensure that homeless students who meet the eligibility criteria do not face barriers in accessing academic and extracurricular activities, including magnet school, summer school, career and technical education, advanced placement, online learning, and charter school programs, if such programs are available at the state and local levels. If the state or local law conflicts with the McKinney-Vento Act, they are supposed to follow the McKinney-Vento Act. It is a federal law that applies to every LEA, local education agency, even those who do not receive funding. McKinney-Vento Act and other federal laws do not give official definitions of a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence as it pertains to children and youth experiencing homelessness. However, the following working definitions may be useful. A fixed nighttime residence is stationary, permanent, and not subject to change. A regular nighttime residence is used on a predictable, routine, or consistent basis. Understanding the federal definition of homelessness, page 3, an adequate nighttime residence sufficiently meets the physical and psychological needs typically met in home environments. McKinney-Vento Act's definition of homeless for children and youth community programs and agencies may define homeless differently. For example, some housing agencies may use service eligibility criteria that require families to be living on the street. Others may require families to show evidence of having moved a certain number of times within several months before they qualify for aid, housing assistance, or shelter. These differences related to definitions of homelessness can be confusing when determining a child's eligibility for services. This is another important reason to fully understand the living conditions that meet the McKinney-Vento Act's definition of homeless. Migrant students are covered by the McKinney-Vento Act if they are living in a homeless situation. A person who moves away from his or her place of usual residence, whether within a country or across an international border, temporarily or permanently, and for a variety of reasons, or a person who moves from one place to another, especially in order to find work or better living conditions. My question to the members of this board is, why is this district not following these laws?
Okay, that's time. We have people who signed up at the door for citizens' comments. The same rules apply, and it must be something that is an agenda item. First person on this list is Teresha Williams.
Is Tanisa Williams, and this is in response to reopening of schools. I have paperwork for everybody. I just don't know how to do it, make sure I get it to you. But the plan for there are 4 sections we have in the no plan. Plan for the second 9 weeks is very vague in comparison to the first 9 weeks plan. As such, there are events happening in schools for which there are no procedures to address. When staff members are exposed to positive cases, entire units are being sent home. There are people who have contact with multiple people in the school buildings and no process for what to do when that person is exposed. Students are returning to face-to-face instruction from homes with positive COVID cases, and since no testing is required, students and teachers are being exposed. School principals should have the autonomy to disseminate a plan because every school population is different, and plan implementation should be adjustable according to the school. What are the contingency plans when administrative or security staff have positive cases, which exposes everyone to the school? Students need technology in order to access their education, and schools therefore should be one-to-one, which has not happened yet. Under PPE, the one-time PPE packages that were provided by the district have cleaning products with harmful toxic chemicals that are recommended not to be used around students or pregnant women. Teachers have complained of nausea and vomiting after using these products in cleaning schools in between classes. The amount of PPE provided is not sufficient without teachers having to come out of pocket for additional supplies. Why was this a one-time purchase for something that is a constant need? Teachers' health concerns. Teachers with documented underlying health conditions or who are sole caretakers for highly susceptible family members should be allowed to teach virtually from home, following an approved schedule by their principal, the same way quarantine teachers are allowed to teach from home. School buildings need to be accommodated with hot water in all the bathrooms for students and teachers so as to assist with proper hand washing according to safety guidelines. Contact tracing. A clear and transparent process is established for contact tracing. We need that here in MPS because there is not one. Montgomery Public Schools needs a system-wide tracking system to accurately inform teachers and parents of positive cases and quarantine numbers weekly. Teachers are being informed that they can continue teaching even while being exposed to positive cases, and this has happened in more than one school. Teacher overload. Having separate virtual and face-to-face staff so that teachers are not required to teach in 2 learning environments is being asked for by our overloaded teachers. They're being asked to teach virtual and face-to-face at the same time, and when you have multiple preps, then that extends the amount of classes that you have to teach. Teachers should be designated as essential workers, and hazardous duty pay should be given to face-to-face teachers. And also, there are teachers who are not getting 30 minutes of planning each day in accordance with the law. Our contact information is here. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, next up we have Natalie Wright.
Oh, Lord. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to speak. President Claire Wills, I believe you had my little speech here, and you said it before I got up, because mine is on buildings and the operations of the buildings, and so I'm not going to beat a dead horse. MPS is well aware of the problems that we have in our schools. They're very serious, and they need to be addressed. They need to be addressed immediately because our lives are at stake. And as I began to research some of the problems, especially indoor clean air quality, that's a serious problem. And we've overlooked it for far too long. We've endured it and did not even realize what we had been learning and living under because we are at school a lot. It's very serious. Poor air circulation flowing in these older buildings. I want to address the fact of, you were talking about money, and the mishandling of funds and how that's being addressed. But I'm going back to the buildings. But when we do not take care of these buildings, that is also mishandling funds, and we waste money. If you come out constantly repairing the roof, which we do a lot, and you're going back over and over and you're not addressing the problem, or constantly getting air quality tests, and according to Alabama Department of Public Health, if you get an air quality test, if it's a good one, they should give you a report on what to do. So when we pass this tax, and I pray that we do, it's a poor excuse not to in Montgomery, Alabama, so I'm not going to go there with that. That's just an excuse. We need to pass it and then come down here and sit at every board meeting and demand that they do what they said they were going to do with this money. But that tax need to be passed, and shame on us. And you can't blame nobody else here in Montgomery. Y'all know what I'm saying. Shame on us if those citizens that live here, our children live here, our grandchildren are here, and we do not do that. That's a poor excuse. We need to be involved. But getting back to this, you're going to waste more money if you build schools and you don't properly maintain them. If you don't hire the right people who know how to go out and maintain these buildings, because that's not being done. I made one phone call to Alabama Department of Public Health. I told them what was going on in our building. You already mentioned the mold, the mildew, the sagging tiles for 20 years, whatever. They just sagging. And he said those need to be changed, even if they are dry. Those toxins are still there. Why don't your maintenance people know this? If they're qualified and they're making all this money, if you hired them, why would they turn off the air when Alabama Department of Public Health says clearly turning off the air creates more moisture in a building? Those are some things that we should not be doing. So that is wasting money. And now we are afraid to go to work. We got to compromise. Our health is being compromised. Some of us, especially those of us that's older. Well, I'm just going to say the last thing. We shouldn't have to choose between our jobs and our health. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. And Alan, is it Brewer?
Good evening, everyone. I just want to speak on just two things this evening. One is has been already been touched on, is transparency. I spoke on that in August before. We were pretty much told to, that the kids were supposed to going back to school the first time. If you guys paint a picture, I've worked on many boards, and part of the board's job is really to make sure that we oversee the maintenance and the ongoing of whatever the organization, institution that we're over. I know that we need money, and we're definitely going to vote for the tax. However, if I'm going to ask this, can we paint a picture more than AP courses and just a few of the other courses like ballet and dancing? Our kids need vocational education. All right? I was in a conference today. 23% of the people that are actually working or worked during the pandemic, they had bachelors. 53% of the people that were still working during the pandemic, they actually had vocational education. Our kids are making, our coach at Tuskegee, our kids are making 13. We can't even recruit them. Can we look at actually with this tax, painting a picture that we can add ACT teachers or prep courses within our curriculum? That way they can, the ones that are going to school can have a better chance of getting scholarships, because it's not based upon some of these bloated GPA courses. It's really based upon ACT. And then can we better position our kids? I'm asking again to paint a picture. Not just saying that we need better buildings. We've seen our buildings for years. Lee High School, where I graduated, it got a window over there that's open, probably the same window that was open 30 years ago. We understand that. We need you to paint a picture so that we can have a better understanding of accountability for what you're actually going to do with the funding that we get. We know that the money's needed, but we want to have a better understanding. So I'm asking right now, just like transparency of what a plan that I asked for in August, how can you not have a plan that's presented to 28,000 people and they're pretty much on their own, and we sent a survey out a week before that says that, hey, make a choice whether your kid is going to school or not, and you got to stay with it for 9 weeks if you say, that's not acceptable. You guys are our you work for us. We're our taxpayer dollars going to work. 28,000 kids, and we don't have a plan. I know you got a lot on your plate, but prioritize some of the things as a board and as Madam Superintendent. Please, if you need to set up a council with concerned citizens to help you assist with some of this stuff, I think you have enough people in this community that have enough kids that will be able to come to the table and sit down with you versus just giving us...
Okay, our time is up, but I'm going to say this. The plan includes career tech, and it includes that in a big-time way.
But career tech, my wife was teaching in career tech, so I understand that.
Yes, sir.
But career tech is not offered at every school. That's what I'm getting at.
Well,
we want it to be offered at every kid.
We have a plan for this.
Well, can you present it to us so we'll have a better understanding before the next 2 weeks? That's what I'm asking.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Okay, we are now at a point to receive some information, and Dr. Nettles is up first.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good evening. You have received the information in your board packet for the superintendent's professional learning plan. Do you have any questions or concerns for me or the superintendent? If not, Superintendent, did you have any comments before I talked about the timeline? Okay, you also received the timeline. We're presenting the professional learning plan at this point. So up to this point, the superintendent completed the self-assessment, and she worked with her cabinet to create the learning plan. The learning plan focuses on where we are in the district at this point. The timeline continues from October of this year to April of 2021, the superintendent completing all activities, collecting evidence and data, and then in May and or June, we will present the completed evidence information regarding the professional learning plan, and then that's when you all will complete the superintendent's evaluation and present it to the public. Are there any other questions or concerns? Superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next, Dr. Cook, professional development on virtual teaching.
Good evening. I just wanted to report out to you on the professional development opportunities we have given our teachers in order to prepare them for this monumental year that we are having. We have held over 155 individual sessions. The vast majority of those were recorded and are available online. We used both NPS teachers and trainers from our Ed Tech department, as well as contracting with some national trainers to present the Zoom training so that teachers could attend virtually. We actually had almost 40 full hours of sessions that were devoted strictly to Schoology, and they were offered while teachers were at work. So these were 40 hours of sessions that teachers were required to attend. We paid them to attend because they were on their normal workday hours. During the first week of school, students were released at noon, and teachers had sessions from 12:30 to 3 every day for a total of 12 and a half hours that week. And then weekly after that, during the entire first 9 weeks, every Wednesday, students were released at 2 o'clock, and teachers were in sessions from 2 until 3. August in-service hours totaled 11 hours. October in-service hours totaled 6.5. So that was 40 hours that were during a normal workday. Also weekly, our Ed Tech trainers held live Q&A Zoom sessions. At each of these, we had 9, and at each of these, we had over 1,000 teachers signed in asking questions. Principals and central office personnel received training on both using Schoology and how to virtually drop in to the teachers' classrooms during monthly principal grade span meetings. Again, these sessions were recorded. They're available online in several locations. They're available to the public. They're on YouTube, so you can get to them quick and easily. And we also created and uploaded sessions for parents and students, helping them know how to use our technology, how to get onto Zoom, how to get onto Schoology. And then we created a how-to guide that we sent out to parents. What questions do you have for me?
I'm hearing that some of the teachers, maybe new teachers to our system, are having some issues with doing the virtual and face-to-face all in one procedure in a classroom. Will that be additional training for teachers that are having this time?
Yes, ma'am. As a matter of fact, just this morning, Mr. Mitchell charged the PD department with creating trainings for teaching face-to-face and virtually simultaneously. So we started working on that this afternoon. We are developing that now because we have different schools that are approaching the teaching virtually and teaching face-to-face differently. And so we are developing the training so that we can personalize it. There's actually 3 major ways that the schools are doing this face-to-face and virtual teaching. And so we're trying to personalize those and come up with 3 trainings so that the schools and the teachers can go to the training that directly applies to the method that's being used at their school. They're all going to be virtual Zoom, so I will send you the link. Yes, ma'am.
I had an additional question, probably that goes along with Lisa's. When you talk about the virtual opportunities that the teachers have for PD, they now teach from 8 to 3 or 3:30. How does that work with their time? And I'm asking because I know they have to prepare lessons for both virtual, face-to-face, grades, what have you. So what would that professional development, how is that set up for them to be able to participate in with all of the other things that they have to do?
We will have some that is set up during the day, and the principals will give release time to, say, 3 to 5 teachers who will then participate in the training and then turn it back around at their school during faculty meetings and other times. We will have, in every training we have, we will record. So it will be available. Teachers can view it at their own, whatever works best in their schedule, whether it's early morning before school, during their afternoon, after school time, during their planning period, whatever works best for them.
So basically what you're saying is at every school that is the principal and the teachers are going to kind of orchestrate that just to make it where it's doable, like if it's a planning time.
Yes, I'm working with a company right now that has a full-day training, and we are trying to get it and have 3 teachers from each school as well as a leader, whether it be the principal, the assistant principal, a reading coach, or what have you, attend that training and then bring it back into the school and arrange for what's best in presenting it to the rest of the teachers.
Okay, well, can I get on the Lisa?
Yes, ma'am, you can.
Okay, other questions? Thank you, Dr. Brooke.
Thank you.
Mr. Davis, on policy 6, students, non-traditional students.
Good afternoon. We have had a couple of inquiries out at Impact about non-traditional students wanting to attend Impact at one of our programs. We did not have a policy in place for non-traditional. So all this is the first paragraph will be a board policy establishing that non-traditional students can attend Impact and take a career tech program. The criteria is not board policy, that's just our procedures. I'm trying. That's just our procedures that will go about a student wanting to participate in that. We did not want to put that board policy for, as one example, as Ms. Gillis said, we will charge $225 a semester for that student to come. If we find out that's not enough to cover what we need to teach them in class, so forth and so on, we would not have to make an adjustment to board policy. It would just be to the criteria. Those students that want to come have to be living within Montgomery Public School District, either being homeschooled or at a private home school. Any questions?
I really have one question. The 225, if you are, and I'm asking on a socioeconomic kind of standpoint, if you are homeschooling, some parents who choose to homeschool, but they want their children to participate, but they can't afford it. Is there going to be some type of waiver or something for that, for a parent who may just economically?
Yes, ma'am. That would be something that Mr. Watts and I would have to sit down and see if we can find funding for that. But this price was a discussion with myself, Ms. Gillis, and Mr. Watts about the amount that they would pay per semester.
But for a child that, because there are people out there who are homeschooling but still can't afford it, I would personally like to, get some ideas of how you all plan to address it.
So as we look at this, also remember that under our state budget, we only receive funds for students who are enrolled in our schools. And so students who are homeschooled are not enrolled, and so we do not receive any kind of monetary amount for students who are homeschooled. So to allow them to participate will require some kind of either funding source other than if they can't pay this fee, that there would have to be some kind of funding source to compensate for the fact that they're not enrolled as one of our students.
And I remember something like this that came up years ago with the State Department. Oh, yeah. I remember something similar to this being brought up at the State Department. And I was wondering if there was if there is a funding source, or we can ask for a waiver or something, or just to see what, how, because I don't know how that kind of...
So we can attempt to find ways if there are students who are not able to pay the fee, but I just wanted to make sure we're clear on the fact that a homeschooling kid is not part of the budget that we receive from the State Department. So it's a service that we would offer them as a homeschooler, but their funding would not be a part of our normal, typical kind of funding source that we receive for students who are actually enrolled in our school system.
It should be clarified that the overall size, so there's no problem.
Yes, ma'am, and the 225 is very comparable to all our surrounding districts that allow this to happen. And as Mr. Watts said, most of them are between 200 and 250 per semester.
Does Impact have a quota? I've forgotten.
It does not have a quota. There is there's an application process and certain parameters and requirements that students have to meet before they can attend there.
Okay. But this population, the non-traditional population, would not take a slot away from
No, ma'am.
that's already in the district?
Our MPS students that are enrolled in our district would have first priority coming to Impact. If there is additional openings in that program, then we would accept homeschool or private school homeschool students.
Jana, did you have a question? Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Anderson.
Good evening. Going through the operations update, the Brubaker middle roof is 90% complete. The areas around the skylights are the only areas that are remaining in that completion. The Peter Crump roof is 100% complete, and we have the final sign-off on that. Seth Johnson, they have delivered the materials and are starting on that as we speak, and the Capitol Heights roof is in the pre-bid portion of that process with that. So we should see a bid going out here on a Capitol Heights roof in the next couple of weeks. And again, like we said before, we're trying to space these roofs out so that we get the best pricing. If we try to jump all in at once, the companies that give us the best pricing, they'll get tied up on certain roofs and we won't be able to get the best pricing on that. So we've been spacing those items out. The Union Street elevator project is going to begin here in the next few days. We'll have that going. The JD HVAC replacement phase 3 is complete. Those are the largest phases, 1, 2, and 3, and we're beginning phase 4. Phase 4 and phase 5 are what we would call that new building or the 9th grade wing. That's approximately 25 classes. The first one, phase 4, is 10 classes, and phase 5 is 15 classes. They are looking to have that complete sometime early January. With the time we've had off, we've been able to get ahead. This was an anticipated year-long project, but with no one in the buildings, we were able to get a good bit done prior to them returning. And I know it's a huge inconvenience, but we've been working with the administration over there to try to help as best we can with those things as quickly as we can. Phase 4, they're looking at being sometime in November, completing with phase 4, and hopefully get started with the last phase sometime there shortly after with as minimal as distraction as possible. The Intercom upgrades around the schools, it's approximately 16 of the locations that we're trying to upgrade. That we're about 75% complete with that. The BTW site package contract is about 95% complete, and working to finish that up. And then the construction contract, the vertical part of it, should go to bid here sometime in November. Hopefully have a contract in place late November, early December to get started as quickly as we can. We've had a little bit of delay on the site package, of course, with the rain coming through with hurricanes and that sort of thing, but they've been moving quickly as possible on those things. Flooring, we've been scratching the surface on flooring. We spent close to $500,000 with flooring over this time. I've been trying to get ahead on some of that because of not having as many people in the building, but we work with building administration for them to identify key areas that they would like to see. My goal is to try to do something in each building. So we're at about 28 locations, knowing that some locations are newer than others, like a park crossing, and wouldn't require flooring, but most of our buildings require some flooring, if not in most of the areas. But again, we're scratching the surface with the flooring. And again, if we're lucky enough to pass that vote, with a vote coming up here on November 3rd, we'll have a larger flooring project going on with that. Exterior painting, we've completed exterior painting at Goodwin, Capitol Heights, and Pentlala. Not all of those areas are exactly what I would like to have done with that, Goodwin and Capitol Heights mainly. I'd love to have ripped out those windows and replaced those things, but the cost factor in that at this time is just too great, and we really wanted to get something going to give it a little better curb appeal for the people in the city and the kids coming into the school. If you get a chance, ride by those areas. It has cleaned up the appearance from the outside and helps a little bit with that, but again, with the tax, we'd like to do more. The Lanier Auditorium, we're in the pre-bid. That's getting very close here in the next couple of weeks. That HVAC project, it's a little tedious. They're with where HVAC unit is located. It's very difficult to get to, so the engineers have had a time trying to engineer that to make sure we do that the most economical way we can, but also do it the right way with those things. But that is the operations updates, and I'll be happy to answer questions. Yes, ma'am.
First of all, Adam, a couple of nights calling me out there while we were about a month ago, and I heard you say that the roof is put on there, but are they doing anything towards the parking lot, you know, or some of the things you mentioned, like the unused blinds that are not, you know, all dilapidated? I don't know how much that costs, but are they doing anything towards other things other than the roof out there?
Yes, ma'am. One of the things we're kind of waiting, we're going to do a little bit of renovation inside the auditorium, but again, if you don't have a good roof on top of it, you're defeating the purpose. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We're going to look at doing some restoration in there and Lanier as well once we get the roof on those buildings and get those taken care of. And again, the MOU we did with the city concerning the old Floyd property, they're going to repay 53 of our locations, which is all of our locations in the next 5 years. So we have that in place and ready to go as soon as we get the go-ahead from the city. So typically we'll do the paving when it's a downtime and there's not as many people in the area of those buildings. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, excuse me, I've had some parents to call concerning power washing the front of Carver, and they were wondering if that will be able to be done and if they could volunteer to assist in making this happen.
Yes, ma'am. We have a crew that will be going around and doing that. It's part of our grounds crew. Now that we're finished with the grass cutting season pretty much, they're turning their attention to the shrubs next, and then we'll go into the power washing. And we have one setup for that. We're going to look at purchasing another setup so that we can move a little quicker with those things. But yes, ma'am, we're going to be getting on the power washing. And we did a little bit through the spring of last year, but not as much as I would have liked. And again, we power washed. I don't know if you paid attention out front here. We did the front part of the building up high. We had a company come in and do that because our people, getting that high. But there was a big dark stain on the front of the building here. But yes, we want to try to maintain as best we can. And we did some power washing. If you've been by Vaughn Road and Wares Ferry, we power washed those facades as well.
Thank you.
I have one question, and thank you for taking my call today.
Yes, ma'am.
Learned a lot, a whole lot, and I thank you for that. I wanted to just kind of clear the air on some things that are getting out. I know you all have come out to various schools and done air quality control types of things. Checking on water. I think you told me that you are making sure the portable waters are in place. Goodness, we talked about cleaning products and how principals need to let you all know if they are in need of supplies. And also, we talked about so much, I'm trying to remember it all. But a lot of and I told you these were questions that I had gotten, so I wanted to make sure that it was put that, on the record, that there were things that were done. So if you just like to briefly, just as a reminder, as a little sneak to everybody know.
If I miss something, just help remind me on this. But yeah, the one-time care packets that we gave, what that did was get the teachers and all the faculty people started on things. And what I've been instructing the administrators to do, I've been sending them weekly updates and reminders of things. To refill the disinfectant, they need to use their custodian's closet. We have a product in there called Vindicator, and it is also another disinfectant viricide that will kill this virus as well. Not only the product that we provided in the first batch as well with that, but they can reuse that bottle, the spray bottle, and just go through their custodian. That's what I've instructed the administrators to do on those things. what was the next question?
One of them was about the when we talked about the disinfectant. You told me that the aerosol was the hardest.
The aerosol, the spray cans are the hardest for us to get and maintain. I mean, it just, when you're talking about if we did it across the district, I mean, that's 5,000 cans. And for us to try to get a supply and maintain a supply of aerosol cans, it would be very difficult. So that's why we like the spray bottles better, because it'll be easier to fill. It's something that we, can put a pre-diluted chemical in that and get it out very quickly to the teachers out there. If they need extra paper towels or wipes, again, they need to be going through their custodians there at the school or whatever administrator is designated to handle that part of it at their school to help them provide some of those products that they may need to clean their classrooms like they clean it. I mean, some teachers are going to clean it more than others, and we understand that. I mean, my wife is a neat freak, so she's going to clean a lot more than I am, and she does those things on a minute-by-minute basis, and we understand those things. We understand that they're going to be teachers out there that are going to utilize it more than others, but we want them to use it as they feel comfortable, and we feel assured that we can provide it through the custodian with the chemicals that we provide them out there in the schools to give it to them as they need it.
And we also talked about, and I know the humidifiers, so that was something that was brought up, and I just asked you about it. You were telling me how expensive they are to get the right kind that would trap the virus and purify the air more efficiently according to EPA standards.
Some of the stuff that we've looked at, I mean, purifiers are great, and we see claims from chemicals all over the place, but if it's not regulated by the EPA and not stamped by them, it really is just a claim by the company on those things. So, we can spend a ton of money on things, there are products coming out every day that say that they'll kill a chemical for 6 months on a surface, but it's not backed by the EPA. So that's not really a standard that we uphold just by that company's claim. We want to make sure that it's backed by the EPA, CDC, and fits all the CDC guidelines. That's where we base our cleaning procedures on as well, or CDC guidelines.
And then the air filtration, the air filter, you were telling me about that for students who may, have more modern schools, but need a particular filter for their schools.
The motor air filters, we've changed with Train, and that's one of with the contract that we have with Train. They come in and change our filters, as guided by ASHRAE standards, and within the last 6 months, they've changed over 19,000 filters in our schools. So they're out there in our schools working every day.
And the reason, and there are still a ton of questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Brubaker Middle is in my district, and I've noticed the towels.
Well, and
the CARES Act money, honestly, is almost like a blessing.
Yes, ma'am. Well, everything that we listed, that I just went over on this report, is not on our general fund because we couldn't afford it. If we used our general fund maintenance money, we're not afforded that much money. Mr. Watts gives us as much as he can, but this has been done through ATF funding. It's extra that the state gave us because our economy was doing so well. And that's one thing that scares me moving forward. We're looking at doing the entire Brubaker complex, not just Brubaker Middle, but all of the Brubaker schools HVAC project. That's going to be coming up here in the near future with PSCA fundings, the bond measure that the state passed. Again, these are, like Mr. Watts will say many, many times, these are one-time monies. To have the plan we want to have, we've got to have that vote November 3rd to do it right, to make this thing happen. So we have great plans and great visions, but without money, it's not gonna be a possibility.
I guess the thing that I shared with you was about making sure, to me, Dr. Moore, is about the communication piece. I think a lot of people didn't know what was going on, and it created a lot of apprehensions. And I mentioned to Chad if we could just put something out there, maybe internally, so that people, the teachers and whomever will know what we're doing. And then if they have some suggestions, I guess open up something so that they can comment and just kind of give some input at the schools if they notice something and maybe the administrators are not responding quick enough, but they see this as something as a dire need and just to kind of, just for the sake of, so that they can feel safe. We're asking them to come and I think they're just asking to feel safe. But after talking to Chad, I was like, I've seen that literally so much thought has truly gone into this, and I wanted to make sure because I still see myself as a teacher in the classroom a lot, and it was scary for me even watching them go. But after talking to you, Chad, I felt at ease, you know, and I have to say the teachers themselves have done, and principals have done an incredible job structuring those rooms for themselves. I mean, I've seen some ingenuity taking place. I've seen pictures. I just hate they had to come out of pocket, but I know that they want to stay as safe as possible. But I do see that on your end that you're doing, you know, as much as you can. So Mr. Wise has worked with him.
He's been great, and we want to continue to do more. I mean, we have the water filling stations that we're going to retrofit 2 water fountains in each school. I know that's a small number, but the cost that each one of those filling stations cost is very expensive. So we provided, we sent out an email. On our holiday on Monday, I delivered water out to schools. So that was, that's what we're here for, to help. But we just want to work with the administrators and make sure we do the best for them. If the teachers will work through their administrators and make their voices be heard through their administrators, and if you don't see something happening through that administrator, feel free to email me and carbon that administrator on that, and we'll definitely come take a look at it. I think that's what Dr. Moore, that's her big thing, is she's going to go check it and make sure. I mean, trust but verify. That means put your eyes on it, and that's what we do. I went to 14 schools last week. I went to 6 yesterday. Had some meetings that we had to attend today, but we'll be back out again tomorrow doing audits on that. Of the schools, we audited 6 on Monday. Every school had soap, hand sanitizer, paper towels in every bathroom of the 6 schools we went to. And that's what we'll be making sure we maintain throughout there. And again, I've notified the principals if they're missing something, anything like that, they just need to email myself. Tiffany Smith with logistics is kind of our go-to as far as supplies, but we're here to help. That's what we're here for. And one more thing on the Brubaker thing, we're going to, when we do the HVAC project there here in the near future, they're going to replace all the ceiling tiles in that building. So we'll get the leak stopped, which the roof did, $1.2 million. Get the air conditioner done, which is going to be about $2.5 million. And then all the ceiling tiles on that as well. But yes, we're cleaning and doing and trying to help as best we can.
Any other questions on where we are on the operations update?
I would like for Chad to make, there was a comment made earlier about chemicals and pregnant women, and whether or not, I know you and I had that discussion this week about whether or not there was a chemical out there that we were using that could be detrimental to someone's health. And so would you comment on that, please?
Sure. I saw an SDS sheet, a safety data sheet that one of the teachers provided from 2015, and I provided the updated safety data sheet from 2019, which excludes those things. They've made alterations to the chemical on that. We also called the company, and they pretty much, it's safe for schools, safe for hospitals. Of course, you don't want to ingest it or spray it in your eyes or anything like that. And once you use the chemical, make sure you wash your hands, and then also use the gloves we started you out with. That was a small amount, but if you need more gloves, see your custodian, and they'll help provide more gloves for you, that especially if your skin's sensitive, more sensitive than others. You can use the face shield that we provided to help guard your eyes in those situations. And, we're here to help. And if there's if you have some special sensitivities, again, make sure you let your administrator know, and Dr. Boswell and his crew will help make accommodations with chemicals if need be.
Okay, can we move on for you to the Norris property?
Yes, that's a little over 6.5 acre piece of property that lies to the north of BTW. And what we were facing with that situation was we either had the chapel that was located on the property was about 7 feet over the easement line, and the neighbors were asking us to move that property. So we, of course, architects looked into those things and weighed the cost of it. And what we ended up doing is going into an agreement with them, if approved tonight, that will provide 6.5 more acres, which will get us closer to the land requirement that the state has for high schools, and give us room to stretch out of there. One thing that it will do is it'll give the soccer field a permanent home where it was initially going to be located. If and when we have the funding to build the theater that we would like to build there, we would have had to find another place for the soccer field. So it will give it a permanent home, and again, give us room to stretch there. Doing this move on this, it's cheaper to buy this property than to move that building that was on the property, according to the architects and engineers with their estimates on moving the property, changing the services that were provided out to that building, and then, of course, having to repair any damage to the structure as you move it. It would not have been an easy task at all, but this will satisfy all those things, plus give us more property, and plus be at a cheaper cost than moving the structure.
Any questions? Thank you. Next up, we have Dr. Williamson to talk about Helping Montgomery Families Initiative, and I do know that District Attorney Dara Bailey and his crew are in the audience tonight, and we appreciate you being here.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We are asking to continue our partnership with Helping Montgomery Families Initiative. It is a partnership between Montgomery Public Schools and the DA's office. Through this partnership, we're able to connect students to additional resources within the community when there are behavioral and or attendance issues for students. This has been a multi-year partnership for our district, and we have engaged in some additional brainstorming so that we can increase the outcomes for this partnership, even in the midst of COVID. So along those lines, we will be meeting more regularly to talk about specific data for students, how they're being connected to services, what services they are being connected to review the referral data, and to also review any students for any special situations in which we're not able to move forward with those. As we have brainstormed on how we can improve this partnership through the DA's office and potentially through our justice system, there will be supports to help us when families are resistant to the support, to help us with locating families, and to help provide a little more leverage for us to provide the services that are needed when they're challenging situations. No, ma'am. No, ma'am, that's fine. The last thing that I would like to say for that, along with looking at those additional data points and having those meetings more regularly, we have also tried to identify how we can ensure that our students are really maximizing in this program. So through that partnership, we have identified additional partners that are coming to the table. Mr. Anderson has provided that for us. We're looking at any of the challenges that we have experienced in the past that have prevented families from moving successfully through this partnership, as well as reviewing internally how we can improve our support within MPS for families when we're experiencing some very specific challenges. The only change that we have made within this partnership is to decrease the amount that MPS has committed. It has decreased from $100,000 to $75,000, and the purpose for that is because we are also, while we're trying to protect this partnership, we are also trying to protect our ability to meet the needs of children who are at risk within our district, knowing that as children were coming back, we needed to be able to provide more social work services, and we needed to be able to provide more attendance support.
Ms. Myers. Pull your mask down, please.
I am definitely in support of this program. I have been on the board since the inception of this program. I know what they do. I know what they can do. And with the problems that we're having now with having virtual face-to-face, some of these problems are even magnified. So I would hope that we today would vote that we will support this program, because I do see the need of it, and I have seen what this program can do for the system. And when we stop looking at what we can do for our children, we need to get out of the business.
Joan?
Thank you, Dr. Williams, this on. And thank you, Mary. Child Protect has also been involved with HMFI since its inception, and certainly, you know, the challenged children, whether it's academics or socioeconomic or abuse that they face, it seems to be the same children over and over, and I appreciate that. There were a couple of things when I was reading the MOU that I had questions about, so if you don't mind, I go, it's maybe like this. First, I know that we have cut it for $25,000. We have been funding it for $100,000. I think, you know, where we are in the challenges with our funding, we've got to be extra careful. I know $25,000, that sounds like a lot, but, you know, when Mr. Watts knows when you're pinching pennies and rubbing them together, it all counts. When I read through the MOU, in the past, up until this MOU, which is October 1st of 2020 to September 30th of 2021, the city, it's got that the city is still committed to $125,000 in this MOU, and they actually cut the program also to $75,000. And the county is still at $100,000, and the DA's office, I'm assuming, is still at $50,000. So before we agree on this, we need to know these changes in there. I mean, maybe they've already been addressed, and I just haven't opened. The other question that I had, we're giving $75,000, and we were giving $100,000, and underneath it, it says that the MPS City County has agreed to support and provide some funding to the DA to continue the existing HMFI programs. Monies will be utilized solely to pay HMFI expenses such as staff salaries and benefits, travel, and materials, including office space, office supplies, postage, radio, cell phones, and printing. I'm curious to know why then we're given $75,000 and they're supposed to be responsible for postage, and then on page 4 it says MPS agrees to pay postage and mail letters to MPS guardian and parents. So do you want me to do my questions one at a time?
Yes, ma'am,
Okay,
please.
so I don't understand why we're paying and it says that they're going to cover postage and then we're covering postage.
So there's two levels to that, and the postage that we cover within the district is for those additional letters that go out once the letter goes out from the school.
Okay, so letters from the school and then letters.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Okay, and then the DA's office has some exclusive control over and management of the disbursement of all such money received under this agreement. I understand that, and I'm certainly, like I said, we have been involved with the program. I work for a nonprofit, as you know, and I don't think that MPS is a for-profit, and Mr. Watts, you and I could do very well in using our pencils to the nut. So I just, as we move forward with this, I would like to know how we are going to measure outcomes. And outcomes are measured when you ask a so what question. So I understand that last year NPS referred 400 children to HMFI. 110 of those were taken on by the HMFI program. So what? I mean, so I want to know the so what. Did X amount return to school? Did X amount get X services? I would like to see some outcomes, because when you are giving money away, as in a nonprofit, when you get grants, you are responsible for reporting that back to the donor. And I believe that we all work for tax dollars, and so we owe that, even though it is such a small amount of money. I would like to see what the stats of the children and families that were served since the pandemic, from March 15th to August 15th, when school went back in, because like Ms. Breyer said, these children are now at a greater risk. And I think that, we cannot use that because it's a pandemic that we're not going to serve kids, and we're not until they get back in school. So I would like to see how many were actually served by the HMFI program. And then what is being measured now and in the past? What are our measurements that we're going to report the outcomes on? I would like to know that.
So may I address your questions? Okay. So I'm glad you brought those up. And as we went through that brainstorming session, we actually discussed how we could strengthen that reporting. So if you will notice, in the past, that reporting happened on a twice-a-year cycle. We have changed that so that for this school year, as we are, as I stated earlier, trying to make sure that we increase outcomes in the midst of COVID, that brainstorming and that data review between us will be on a monthly basis. And during that meeting, not only will we discuss the numbers, because there's a weekly report generated out of my office for whom is being referred and whom has been met upon. And we've discussed that data in those meetings, but now we will dive down even deeper into specific children, what specific services they've been referred to, and in some cases even when they have been referred back to MPS. So we have put additional stopgaps in place so that we can tighten up that data loop. And one other thing that has not been in the place in the past that they were more than willing to work with us to get in place for this school year is to close the feedback loop with the schools, because that's one of the things that the principals have continually asked of me. How do we know what has happened when a child has gone through that process? So they've committed to work with us not only to provide feedback to schools about how well a child is doing, when not the sensitive information, but what's working well, what triggers a child, how can we help this child experience success, how can we ensure that there's continuity from the services that they're receiving outside of us, so that we're reaping that same harvest within the district and within the classroom. So they've committed to help us with that, but they've also committed to receive input from our teachers on what's happening with students, so that before a child is closed out, we have as much data as possible to ensure that we're really providing the best service and we're meeting the needs, not only for that child, but for that family.
Thank you. And do we get, I know that the district attorney's office, monitors and does the budget and everything, but do we ever get an itemized budget as to where this cost, the $75,000, is going specifically in the office, or is it just a blanket contribution or support, or is there a breakdown of that budget?
So per what you read in the contract, the budget belongs to them.
Okay.
So no ma'am, we do not require them to submit a budget, because it is theirs to run the office as they see fit.
I mean, and I know things are different, like I said. When we ask for money from the city and the county, we are required to submit a budget and how we're going to spend those specific dollars, so maybe it's different. And let's see, so I'm guessing that. Okay, that's all I have.
Lisa.
All right, thank you.
I just wanted to make a comment. I had Judge Loyal James, sorry, I put probably Loyal Munn, but She called me, and I'm glad that you come to monthly. I'm not saying that should be overdoing it. So I just didn't hear the two events this year. I have been to some of the bullying, or their bullying, seminars that they did when the teacher in Belmont that was totally impressive. I too was like Vienna, because I hadn't, I didn't know what we were doing about, the bullying still going on. I didn't know things, what was going on since March. And really, I'm sad that we take it down to 75. And I realized that I've been to say somewhere, but to hear what she itemized for me, I was embarrassed that I was embarrassed of them. And I'm one person that when I'm wrong, I'm whoa, I'm wrong. And I'm making it public to anybody out there. I'm embarrassed for me that I have. But some of the things that we do just during COVID would be far more worse. The 75, like I said, I'm sad that we went to 75. They are actually going out to these families, helping them, especially the ones that have lost their job, helping them not only find jobs, make applications, things like that. One of the new things that they're doing that she told me about in the next week is just fabulous. They are taking kids that have been, our kids, us on the board, we don't have kids that see violence every day. But as teachers, where I'm at, teaching now, day and night, even college, we get kids all the time that see things that I could never even fathom. And what Carol Bailey, Gloria, that whole group is doing is a whole team effort to reach out to our kids, getting them counseling, getting them counselors, reaching out to them. And I was floored by what they were doing, and I would never question again. I've been on, I think, since the inception myself, and I make a public apology and I applaud what they're doing. And I hope that we would consider in the future, near future, that we would keep that $25 and on that,
Thank you.
Mine was a comment, and I think she stole everything that I wanted to say. Thank you very much. The only thing I think that I can add to that is that we might need to find a way to let the public know what we're doing. I think we spend a lot of time, digging for what might not be. We need to let the public know what is going on. For the past 2 years, I have used the HMFI group to inform parents of what resources are available, and parents are in awe that the DA's office is not just a punitive resource, that there are good and positive things happening for children and families. And maybe in a collaborative effort through the DA's office and MPS, we can let the parents know who we are, what we're doing, what resources are provided for our students. Because I have used in my church the bullying push cards. Again, I have used in another organization the staff in a panel to inform parents of what's going on. But the new movements, as Lisa espoused, are exciting. The trauma-informed resources, the mental health resources, and I too was a little bit disappointed to see the $75,000, but I'm so glad that we're continuing the partnership, and we look forward to moving.
And before we
hoping that we will vote to continue that partnership. Thank you.
And I want to say I was in a classroom teaching upon its inception, so I got to see it from a teacher perspective. And also as a board member, I remember sitting in on a meeting, which you have I think it's every Wednesday, but I sit in on a Wednesday and witness how the process works. It's a wonderful process, and what impressed me the most, both as a teacher and as a board member watching the inside workings of it, was that, like I think either Lisa or Brenda or maybe Mary stated, that you not only help the child, it is a help to the entire family. because once you get to the child, you realize there are some other layers that are there. And I have always been impressed at how you've come in and, provided that assistance, whether it's employment or depression or whatever, or even substance abuse, just being there to be that bridge to get parents and families on the other side to the positive. So I too was disappointed when I found out it dropped down to $75,000. I know that, the city also had questions, but I was so excited to see them come back, circle back around, and come back and support you, because if I'm not mistaken, it started with Bobby Bright a long time ago. So, and it was had its beginnings in Mobile through a DA's office. So it's been here a long time. And anytime you have something in place, you always have to tweak along the way. Some things, just change over time. So I'm glad to hear of all the changes that you all have made and will be implemented, and it's exciting. And I too hope, if this passes, that we will reconsider and revisit fully funding you as well.
Dr. Moore?
Just a short comment. We did have a discussion about this particular agreement several months, probably leading into this current MOA that we have for board approval. And we met, Dr. Williamson, the DA, and people from his office met, and we talked about some of the concerns from both sides. And so we agreed that there would be some discussion, especially about the outcomes and the reporting piece. And I think we managed to put some more teeth into that part of it. And so, our expectation is that we will live up to what we say in the MLA, and that the DA and his folks will do the same, and that we will continue to monitor what we're doing from both sides so that this program is beneficial as it stipulates for our students and for families. And so we do understand that quite well. So that was the reason for the sort of back and forth, but we will continue to meet and monitor what's going on so that we can put forth the best effort possible to make this a really, truly shining star when it comes to helping our students and our families.
And I'd just like to...
I would prefer that we wait.
And I too would like to just say how much we appreciate the DA's office working with us and coming up with something that is a workable plan. This has been a great program for a long time, and I think it may have, gone a little sideways, and it now seems to be right back on track. So, I feel very positive about that. Any other questions for Dr. Williamson?
I'm trying to say, Ms. Wheel, I see that I saw one of them with some folders. Is there something that they need us to have, or I'm just asking because I saw green folders?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Watts.
I recommend the district attorney and Judge James for bringing the information to share with us and enlightening you. This has been an excellent program. And I think it gives our students and parents an opportunity to see the district attorney in another light of arresting someone. And it does well for the community.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Moore, and I'll be very, very brief. You should have the financial statement as it relates to the month of August of 2020. As you know, August represents the 11th month of the fiscal year, so we are almost at the end now. Of course, as you know, September, our fiscal year runs from October 1st through September 30th. So this is the month of August, which represents about 91.67% of the total fiscal year. In the financial statement, you should have the explanation of financial data, and that's just a general overview by the CFO as it relates to our financial position. A snapshot analysis that provides a brief snapshot of where we are as of August of 2020. The monthly budget percentages, which speaks to the 91.67%. Of course, if we were in the 6th month of the fiscal year, there are 6 months out of 12 months, then that would be 50%. So 11 out of 12 months represents 91.67%. The monthly comparative statement of revenues and expenditures is basically an income statement. As of August of 2020, statement of cash flow lists all of our expenditures for the month of August and all of our revenues for the month of August. The pie charts, just a general pie chart showing our cash inflows and outflows. The exhibit F's, which is the combined balance sheet and the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. Madam President, I will just say that our financial position as of August still remain pretty strong. Of course, while our expenditures in a normal situation would be at about 91.67%, we're at about 87% as it relates to our expenditures. We're projecting an increase in our fund balance of about $6 to $7 million for fiscal year 2020, or by the end of fiscal year 2020. I do want to just make just a couple of statements, Madam President, if it's okay, as it relates to the tax. Of course, before I do that, though, we also want to thank both Mr. Andre Bruce. I think he's a graduate of Carver High School, played in the NFL, was the #1 pick by the Atlanta Falcons, if my memory serves me correctly. Mr. Bruce and City Councilor Orunde Mitchell are donating $500 scholarship for both the SAL and the VAL of Carver High School, and there will be a continuous donation, so we really, really appreciate that. Madam President, as it relates to the vote on the tax, I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you. I've seen you guys out there promoting the tax. I've seen you on Zoom calls and just lending your voice for support of this tax. Dr. Coleman, Miss Watkins, and I've seen the board presidents, all of you guys just been out there, just pushing for this tax. And this is just something that we just have to continue doing for our students. And I just want to say to the teachers that are here, we hear you. We hear you. We are in total agreement with you that some of our buildings are in some terrible conditions, deplorable conditions, I would say. But that's why it is so important that we all lend our voices to do every single thing we possibly could to get this tax passed. We have to go to our family members, our community, our churches, everywhere we can go in an effort to get this tax passed. I always talk about comparing Montgomery Public Schools, which has about 6,000 or 7,000 more students than Birmingham City Schools and then Huntsville City Schools. But when I look at the local revenues, do you know over the last 10 years that those school districts have received almost $250 million more than Montgomery Public Schools locally? And I didn't say $250 million, I said $250 million over the last 10 years locally. So it's a reason why our buildings are in the shape that they're in, while we're not offering the career tech courses that the gentleman spoke about earlier. We wholeheartedly agree with you that we should be providing more career tech courses. And as the board president stated, that is in the plan. We want to provide more career tech courses in all of our high schools. We want to provide more foreign languages in all of our middle and high schools. We want to provide arts and music in many of our elementary and middle and high schools. So it's just a great opportunity for us to do everything we could and basically do what these children, do for these children what they deserve. They really, really deserve an opportunity to have the best education possible. And you guys deserve, teachers, an opportunity to be in a situation where you can deliver instruction the best way you could. And so that's what we want to provide for each of you, and this is what we want to provide for the community of Montgomery. Our city deserved this. Our county deserved this. So let's turn that ballot over and as the board president stated, and let's vote for Montgomery. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watts. Next, we have nominations for the 2020 Aasb Delegate Assembly. Do you want me to ask for volunteers, Dr. Moore?
Yes,
We need 5.
4, 5.
5. So who, 5 delegates. Show me if you are interested here, would you? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, one more.
I would like to see someone in my place go to Simon Brown. I know she can't serve as a delegate, but she can attend the
Okay, all right, so who have we got? We've got,
she can't be a vote delegate, but she can go in my place and the Expenditure.
all right,
Madam President,
yes.
we qualify for 5 plus a delegate.
Plus an alternate.
I'm sorry, plus an alternate. 5 delegates plus an alternate. So I think the first thing is who plans to can't go in person, because only those going in person. Yes. If you are not a delegate, you cannot go in person. So the comment I was about to make is only delegates can be on site. So those who are going on site should be the priority. And then the rest of us can still be delegates virtually. But the notification that we received did say that the priority for the on-site, if any of us registered, if none of us registered, it's a moot point.
Well, and I read this morning, because of social distancing requirements, this year only, voting delegates will be allowed to attend delegate assembly in person. We will provide a virtual voting and live stream option for delegates unable to attend in person.
That's what I said.
So the delegates will...
They all have a certain number of delegates because of the state, so you have to take all that into consideration.
That's correct. Is anybody here going in person? Is anyone here going in person? Then we're all virtual. Okay, so...
Allow you to vote.
Oh, yeah, they'll allow us to... Right, so I've got Erica Smith and Jana Bailey. Jana was, you weren't one last year, so I'm glad you're one this year. Who else wasn't one last year? Who wasn't a delegate? Who wasn't a delegate? All right, no, I'm trying to get down who wants to do this. Dr. Coleman. And Mary, was I understanding you? Oh, Mary, was I understanding that you were asking that Cassandra be a delegate?
No, she can't be a delegate, she has not been installed, but she can't be a virtual.
Okay. All right. Claudia. One, two, three, four, five. We've got Erica, Jana, Brenda, Claudia, and Lisa. And as an alternate, no, I'll be an alternate. That's fine. That works. Okay, so we've got that accomplished. All right, so
Erica Smith, Jana Bailey, Brenda Coleman, Claudia Mitchell, Lisa Keith, and I'll be an alternative, or whatever. Okay? All right, Dr. Moore, reopening of schools, update.
So I'm just going to make this a brief statement. We've had lots of statements tonight from department heads about different things that we're doing. It's on. It's me. I'll talk louder. But I told Chad earlier, in this, of course, the teaching and learning piece is always the heart of what we do. But also with Chad and talking about cleaning and leaking roofs and air conditioners and air quality and all that. Right now, Chad is sort of the person that has to be the go-to person to make all of that happen so that we can at least make our teachers and students and others in the buildings feel comfortable. And so he's doing a really, really great job with that. And then Dr. Cook and others, Mr. Mitchell, working on training for the virtual piece. And then principals have the option, and they're using this option in many schools, where they can use their, say, 3 people at a grade level or in a department, and they are switching out on doing virtual one day and face-to-face the next. And so even though all of them are in the building. So there are other options out there for, at the building level, for them to make decisions about how they're going to do it. But again, we're going to do, as we talked about in this morning's staff meeting, when we hear of issues and training issues and things like that to make people feel more comfortable with virtual or face-to-face, then we're going to do those things also. And then as we hear about issues related to cleaning products, anything like that, as you heard me mention with Chad, he and I had this discussion this week about the chemicals and the disinfectants and whether or not it's safe for pregnant women in this case. It did come to my attention that that was a concern, so he and I had a discussion about that. So we're going to, as much as we possibly can, make everybody feel as comfortable as they can feel under the circumstances. It's all about mitigation until we have a vaccine that makes the COVID-19 go away. So the biggest thing we can do right now is try to help mitigate as much as possible any viruses that might be floating around. Of course, 2 people wearing a mask, much more efficient than 1 person wearing a mask and 1 not. It's best that both people have a mask on. So when we're in schools, and we've been in schools visiting, if we see teachers who don't have on masks, we say, where's your mask? Put your mask on. We remind the principals that part of what they should do is to remind people to put the mask on. We can't be sensitive about that. You know, we have to say it because it's important. And so it's not about confronting that person just for the heck of it. It's about saying this is the safest thing for you to do right now. And as the building administrator, we have to remind people to do things. We remind students. I saw 1 or 2 kids who didn't have theirs on. They were dangling like mine is right now. But we said, look, baby, put your mask on, and it was a quick no-brainer. The kid put it right on. And so throughout the day, that's what we're going to have to continue to do. And then we're going to continue to work with our custodians. If we find out that somebody's not doing what they're supposed to do, then we're going to have to remind them that, this is part of what we have to do. It should be done anyway. I think the buildings are cleaner now than I've seen them. The ones I went in that I've ever seen them, they're cleaner now because everybody's hyper alert to the cleaning piece. And if they're not, then we will remind them that they need to do that. I like the way I've asked Chad, and he's done this over the past few months, to give you updates from operations on any kind of work that's going on in the school. And so if you can kind of connect the dots between everything that we're saying, there's a new roof going on in certain places. There's an HVAC system that's going out in some of the places. These are $1 million projects. They are not $10,000 projects like you would have at your home or less. These are huge, expensive kind of projects that we're trying to do, but we want the board to know these are the projects that we are now making happen with our limited resources. Now, let me remind everybody again, and you've heard this more than once tonight, it is super important that people go out and vote in favor of, because we cannot do these massive projects with 10 mills. It is virtually impossible to do these projects with 10 mills. Right now, we say we have a $250 million deferred maintenance list. That list will continue to grow over the years if we can't do something about them. They will not get smaller, they will get larger. Obsolescence sets in a building, and over time, as that building gets older, things will break down, they will have to be repaired, and with 10 mills, that list of 2 million will grow. It's going to get bigger. And we'll continue to do what we have to do by prioritizing the most important things that we have to do. A leak in a building, a roof that's not working, an HVAC system, as well as flooring and window walls and all those things that you have in a really old building. Those things get old, so they don't work. So they have to be replaced. And one little reminder is that, for everyone who has made comments tonight, and they're very good comments and very timely, that we have to remember when this mill passes, which I'm going to put it out there is going to pass. When it passes, we still have to wait 3 years. It is not going to be overnight. Here's a big chunk of money for you to go on and start doing things. We have to wait until October 1 of 23. So we really will not see that money until probably January of 24. That's when we know that money will start to come in from this increase if we manage to get it. So it's important not only to make it happen, to vote for it, but to also keep in mind that the very next day we're not going to be able to go out to a school and start doing some major monumental kinds of work. But we can put a plan in place once we know, and we can make projections about the amount of money that we can count on coming in through finance, through operations, and through those others. Then we can say, now we can solidify some plans about where we're going to put this money, because now we know it's going to happen. Right now, there are things that we say we will do and we can do if we get extra money. All the things we want to give to our kids, all the things we want to do for buildings, yes, they can happen. But they will not happen if we don't pass this, and they will not happen until after October of 23. And so we all need to remember that. And, I don't want people to vote for it and it passes and then they say, well, they said they were going to do so-and-so. We are going to do that. But we have to wait until the money starts coming in, and it's not going to come in right away. But it's going to come in, and it's going to be great for MPS and the children and the people who work here and for the community when it does start coming in. So I just wanted to throw that out there so that we'll all be cognizant of that and not forget how this thing works once it passes.
Okay. Madam President, since we're on reopening, I had some issues. They're actually, some questions. They're actually more so HR questions. Because
okay,
I know that
she can answer those. Is Ms. Gillis still here?
Mm-hmm. She's right.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and I did, Jay told us to reach out to schools, and I did, and I followed my assignment. And hopefully I'll get an A to talk about the millage as well as the reopening. But there were a few questions from teachers and their HR. They wanted to know if they themselves have been exposed to COVID. I'm trying to remember this off the top of my head. Have been exposed to COVID and have to go home to quarantine. And let's say they come back, or a family member, or their child, and they have to take off work to deal with the child. They come back to work, and let's say the next time they catch COVID, and I pray that doesn't happen, but they wanted to know, is there some type of flexibility to relax the sick leave days or what have you? You probably know. Hopefully I worded it right. Yeah, so they can hear. I think a few are watching, so they wanted that answer.
Can you hear me? Yeah, it's pretty loud. Okay, first of all, the relaxation is we can't relax the laws. When the kids were not there, we did have an isolation period, and we could go home to isolate because there were no kids in the building. At this point, since kids are in the building, we have to stick strictly by the law, which gives them 10 days, and it does not account against their sick leave. It does not account against their personal leave. Those are the 10 days. Now, that law actually expires the end of December, and if they come out with something else, then of course we'll abide by that. But at this point, since kids are back in the building, we have to strictly stick to the FFCRA Act, which is the Families First Coronavirus Act.
Okay, and another question that was asked is, if teachers have documented compromised immune systems, will they be also given the option, I think that even came up with one of the teachers that spoke, will they be given an option to teach virtually if it is documented, or is that off the table?
Nothing is off the table, but first of all, we're not working remotely unless there's something. I can't answer for the whole group because it depends on each individual person. We are taking in a note from the doctor, we're looking at it, we're reviewing it, and we're applying the law to it. Most of the ones we've received, we've been able to make accommodations. Principals have the flexibility to send that information to us, and if we can arrange for one teacher to be on-site, working with the kids who are on-site, we do that, and then the other one go to the classroom with no students in the room and work just in their classroom with the virtual students. We've given them several different options. It really is really based upon the person and what their needs are. So I really can't say globally, this is what we do, because it will be based on need.
And I guess, again, I'm going back to the communication piece. Is there something out there where they can read this? I don't know if they're getting this information, if it's been made available. I'm not sure, but that question kept coming up.
Yes, we sent out the Families First Coronavirus Act to everyone. We sent that to principals. We even have it posted in all the schools. The principals were instructed to post this in the schools, to put it in a prominent place so that teachers, faculty, staff could see it. Then we sent out what we call our opportunity guide. We sent that to MPS All with pertinent information in there. And then if you have questions, contact your principal. If the principal can't answer it, then one of us on the cabinet will be able to answer that question. But we sent it to all or had it posted in schools.
Is there any way it can be put, I guess the employees, you know how they have their own internal way of getting information. Is there a way that they can get it? Because that's a lot of phone calls, you know, and that was the number one question that I got.
They do have, we sent to their email, the MPS Opportunity Guide, we sent it to their email account. It went to MPS All, and Ms. Jones sent that out for us. And as far as the Families First, it's everywhere. We can send it out again, but we sent that out at the very beginning when the law first came out, and we actually sent to principals as well, please post this in your lounges, in the front office, post it everywhere so they can see it, in case they can't find it.
Is there a way we can get it on the website so that they...
We'll post it again.
Yeah, you just put it on the website.
Not a problem.
Under, I guess, whatever tab that would be doable.
Yeah, we'll let Ms. Jones figure that out.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
Thank you. That was the number one question.
Yeah, no problem.
It's for Dr. Moore. Oh, wait. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Basically says that if people request a committee to teach from home because of underlying health conditions or family with under health conditions living in them, they told us teaching from home is not an option when schools open for face-to-face instruction. Going back to what she said, when they're sent home because they didn't study, and it comes up to I get it right, no word right, so the teachers have to go home before they do exposure to a COVID-19 student or college. Our teachers expected to teach during this time. If principals suggested teachers do, does this contradict the district's stance on teachers requesting that they may be allowed to teach from home, given the intensive underlying conditions? know what they will do.
Okay, that's a mouthful, so I'm going to start at the beginning, okay? All right. Absolutely. And let me just say, so many of our teachers have those kind of situations. I actually have that situation as well. I wouldn't dare put my medical information out there because I think I look healthy if nothing else. But I will say this. When we send teachers home under the FFCRA, then no, that's a leave. It's a leave. We can't require them to teach. Now, during the time when kids were not in there and we sent them home just to isolate, because there were no kids in the building, then not only did we not count that against them, but then if they wanted to teach from home, they could still do that because they were not on leave. It was just in isolation. Because kids are back in there, we can't just isolate. I've got to have someone to do the work, so I have to employ a sub, or we have to do some other creative things that we've done. But we've given every relaxation we can without breaking the law. We're not going to break the law. That's not an option for me or the superintendent or anyone else. But when we put them on FFCRA leave, then we can't require them because they are on leave. It's just like any other medical leave. No, they don't. We actually... Right. But if that happens, I can't do anything about that unless I know it. But if I know it, I've had principals in the middle of the night, but I don't think this person is exhibiting symptoms. I said, I don't care. They're on leave. Just like they would be if they were on any other medical leave. We don't call and say, grade these papers. This is a real leave just like any other leave, and we're sympathetic to that. Is that an answer? Did I get them all? Okay. It's okay. You never know.
But I don't agree with what those teachers, like 168 teachers that that day, that we need them.
Well, Dr. Keefe, I will promise you that we're going to stick to the law. When it changes, we change because the law guides us. Okay. Anything else?
Erica, did you have one more question?
It was for Dr. Moore. And thank you for answering that. The other one that I was asked is if there's an outbreak, the question was asked, are principals allowed to close the school building if there seems to be an outbreak? I told them I think it's your call.
Well, under the opportunity guide, we have a process in place where we go through our nurses, and then very quickly we make a decision about whether it's a classroom or the whole school. So for a blanket answer, I can't say that it would be the whole school, but the process is first we start with the nurses, and their nurses in individual schools, they notify us, we notify nurse Rogers, they get on it, and then we make a decision about whether or not this is close contact or the whole school has been exposed. I would guess that in most cases it would not be the whole school that has been exposed, but if there's a serious outbreak, then we can have to look at that.
Okay, and the other one was about if moving forward, if more parents choose face-to-face, will there be a cap on the number of students in a classroom? I'm just asking.
Yeah, well, we'll always keep up with the number and social distancing. From what I've seen in the schools I do, and I think I was in about 11 last week. Right now, the ones that I visited, there was not a problem with social distancing. There was plenty of space between the students. If a principal calls and says, I think there's a problem with social distancing, then feet on the ground, we're going to go out, all of us. I go, Ms. Gillis, Dr. Williamson, Dr. Cook, Chad, everybody goes out. So it's not like one person trying to go everywhere. We all go. And so when if we get that kind of information, then we'll go out and see if there's a way we can help a principal figure out how to have more social distancing or what to do about a class that might be too close together. Matter of fact, we went out and looked at a cafeteria the other day because somebody sent us a picture. So we went and looked. So we deal with it again case by case, but we will depend on them to give us information, which we will get one way or another. We'll get it, and then we'll go check on it.
And my last question was a parent question, well, a few parents. They just wanted to know, will students keep the virtual option for the rest of the remainder of this year, and going into next year, this school year?
I think the plan is for this year, for sure, that virtual will be an option.
For the school year?
For the school year.
Okay.
The school year. Yeah, through the school year.
Okay, any other questions? If not, we're going to move on to our consent agenda, and just to let you know, we need to add a D to the consent agenda, which would be the August financial statement. That got eliminated, so if we can add it back in. Dr. Moore?
Yeah, if you would add item D to the financial statement under number 9, consent agenda, add D, which would be the August 2020 financial statement, because we need to vote on that.
Okay.
All right? I recommend approval of the consent agenda.
Madam President, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as recommended by the superintendent.
I second.
Okay, all in favor, please show with a show of hands. That is unanimous. Dr. Moore?
I recommend, under consider for approval, we're going to go through each item. I recommend approval of the certified personnel, but omitting number 54. Other than number 54, I recommend approval of the personnel report, certified personnel.
Madam President, I make a motion that we approve personnel report, certified personnel, except number 54 as recommended by the superintendent.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor with a show of hands, please. That is unanimous. Dr. Moore?
All right, moving right along. I recommend approval of the personnel report, classified personnel, pulling S46. S46.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move approval of the support personnel listing, pulling number item S46 as recommended by the superintendent.
Discussion? All in favor with a show of hands? That is unanimous. And Dr. Moore?
I recommend approval of the personnel report, classified personnel, addendum number 1.
Motion?
Madam President, I move approval of the support personnel addendum number 1 as recommended by the superintendent.
Second.
There's a second. Any discussion? All in favor with a show of hands, please. Yes, that's unanimous.
Okay, I recommend approval of the Helping Montgomery Families Initiative Memorandum of Agreement.
Madam President, I make a motion that we approve
This is my baby, and I wish you all the time, you know. And in order of making this motion, I move that we adopt the Helping Montgomery Family Initiative. The memorandum
Any discussion? All in favor, please, with a show of hands. That is unanimous.
I recommend approval of the purchase of Norris Property adjacent to BTW property at Holy Cross.
Madam President, I make a motion that we approve the superintendent's recommendation of the purchase of Norris Property adjacent to BTW property at Holy Cross.
Second.
Okay, discussion? All in favor with a show of hands. And that is unanimous.
I recommend approval of the nominations for the 2020 Aasb Delegate Assembly.
Okay. And those, for those who want to know, include Erica Smith, Jana Bailey, Brenda Coleman, Claudia Mitchell, and Lisa Keith, and Claire Wheel as an alternative.
Madam President, I move approval of the nomination for the 2020 Aasb Delegate Assembly as recommended by the superintendent. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor with a show of hands, and that is unanimous. Our next meeting is Tuesday, November the 10th, 2020. Please vote on November 3rd. Turn the ballot over and vote for Montgomery Schools at the end of the ballot. We are adjourned.
Madam President, I'd like to thank our superintendent for always sharing gifts with us at our Halloween package.
Thank you, Kim. We are adjourned.
Thank you. Look, I didn't even need my word. Lisa. Yes, you do. I'm so proud of you. Take my wallet. Get that. Look. I wasn't even mad. I wasn't even cool.